Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So this is Average Garage. As you know, today we'll be doing something a little different. Some keen-eyed viewers might notice the winch behind me. So I pretty much bought this in unknown condition. The bloke said that it's never been run, but I have my doubts. It looks like it's been used. The cable that's on it has been cut. I've got some dyneema rope to replace it with. But let's strip it down, find out what we're dealing with and see if it's usable. So the first thing we're going to do with the winch, as you can see it's a little rusty here. The first thing we're going to do is strip the lock side off here, all these Allen keys around here. Make sure the locking mechanism's still alright, and then we'll pull the engine or the motor side off. Make sure the commutator and the brushes and all that sort of stuff are okay and they're not completely flogged. Hopefully I haven't wasted my money. And then I've got some dyneema rope to put on here, and then we can think about what we're going to do with it after that. So stay tuned. So I've just removed all of the bolts from the locking mechanism, or the locking half. So now I've just got to slide that end plate off. So this isn't really what I wanted to see. There's a lot of corrosion and a lot of rust in there. But hopefully we can get it to, hopefully it'll clean up alright. Sometimes you can get lucky with these things and you can clean them up, but it might be a rebuild time with some new bearings, so we'll see what we come up against. Alright, so I've just stripped all this apart. It's rusty, but it's also very greasy, which is good. So I might just be in luck. I managed to get it all out. Didn't have to smash anything too hard or use any presses or anything, so that's always a good sign. Yeah, so now I've just pretty much got to clean it all up, re-grease everything on this end. But before I get to that, to make sure I'm not wasting too much time, see there's still grease just everywhere. I'm going to strip the motor side off, make sure that's okay, check the bearings out, because if the bearings are gone then I'll have to order some of those. But the planetary set looks okay from what I've seen. I've got to inspect it all closely anyways. I'll give it all a really good clean and inspect it all, but at the moment it's looking good. So that's a quick update, and let's get started on the motor side. Alright, so I've just managed to separate the drum here from the motor, and I may have lucked out. That looks like it hasn't seen water, so with any luck the motor will be salvageable. And if the motor's salvageable, the bits that are down there, which is all the locking mechanism, that'll be salvageable, because there's not really bearings in there. They're all just sort of gears on just a bit of roll pin or dowel. So yeah, they're not really precision bearings, and they're not like this where it's a sealed bearing. So I might have lucked out. So I'm going to pull the rest of this motor apart now and hope for the best that none of the bearings are cactus, and we can move on with our lives. Got the motor plate off here. Bearing's a little rusty, but it actually moves fine. So I think it's all just surface rust. This thing's pretty much full of dirt, as you can see, and even in here, between the armature and the poles, is just caked in dirt. So I'm going to give all this a clean out, and we'll see what we're left with. So I've just popped off this little rubber cap off the bearing, and as you can see, inside is spotless, which is what we want. There's a tiny little bit of dirt in there that I'll scrape out that I just got in from when I did the top cap. Other than that, she's mint. Alright, so I didn't record this part, but I've just pulled the brake assembly apart and cleaned it up, put a little bit of grease just in here where this slides. So I'll pull it apart real quick just so you can see what's going on, but it's fairly simple and straightforward. I think I've got it right here. If not, tell me what I've done wrong. But so that's a solid piece because it's on the spline. This part here is your slide, which is what activates your brake. You got the spring, which just leaves a little bit of tension on it. I'm not going to pull that off again. All I've done is grease up the inside of this, just because it's the main slide, which is now greased, the spline and the shaft that it slides on. So this spring actually slots into a little hole in here. So to put it back together, I've seen a lot of people online not quite sure about this, so I thought I'd put the record straight. So that's your spring, goes in and out. Now this, you've got to determine where this sits by putting it on. So I know, because I've already done it 5 times, that's where mine sits. So you can see they're just in a line here, because what actually happens once this washer and the circlip are on, that holds there, and then when there's load applied, that spins round, which forces these brake pads out. Now, it's a good sign. This winch actually hasn't done much work, so the bloke didn't lie, but it is full of rust. But I'm slowly cleaning all this out. So the brake pads, because they're 2 cones, as that twists, the brake pads are forced outwards, which locks into the drum, which stops everything from moving. So that's how your brake works. Now, if you've got this out, then the only thing is your brake will not be efficient, or it might be locked on. So what you're looking for is these 2 bits to be as close as they can without being turned. So you don't want it here, otherwise your brake's going to be locked on. You probably won't even be able to get it back in the drum depending on the shoe condition. So you want it to be sitting closer, about there. So that's how you want it to sit while that's locked on the spline, and that's where it wants to sit as it's centered. So you could probably get away with it being out. I mean, this will spin around to suit, but you don't want that, because now the spring's bound up and it doesn't actually want to slide too well. It's pretty rough, but now it slides nice and sweet. So that's the easiest way to set it up. That's something to keep a note of. So I'm just going to chuck it back together now. It's about the 8th time I've done it now. Maybe the 50th, I don't know. Alright, that's not going anywhere. You've got your little spring washer. That's going to twist and do what it needs to do. Now, there's also this locking drum. All this does is stop that. So it could spin and go the whole way around and release the brake. This is what stops that. Once that's on there, you can only twist this so much before it all locks solid, like that. So that's what that does. Just going to plonk this Right, so I've just put the motor back together. As you can see, I've chucked a lick of paint on some bits. That's just because they're all crappy and I didn't really want to send them off for powder coating, so it's only a lick of paint. I mean, it's all this is all exposed to the elements anyways, because there's actually a drain hole there that you can see. So it doesn't matter what you do, water's really just going to get in there. All you can do is flush it out with fresh water when you're done. There's 2 drain holes. There's one down here as well, just in case you have it mounted separately. That can be mounted 4 different ways depending on where you want those poles, and how it's going to mount in your car, etc. So I may still have to change this and spin it around, I'm not too sure. But now I'm going to I've just chucked the brake back together as well in the drum over there. Now I'm going to attack the planetary gear set. Ladies and gentlemen, here we have it. It's done. It's as good as it's going to get. Got some dynamo rope to chuck on it, but I'll do that once it's on the car. It'll be a lot easier that way. I'm going to have to drag it all out and re-spool it anyways under load, because you're supposed to spool them up while they're under tension. So dragging your spare tyre through some sand is a perfect example of that. Yeah, so that's as good as it's going to get. I'm happy with that. Everything's pretty much redone. I didn't need to buy anything. It was pretty much just a strip down, clean and re-grease. It's all greased up, it's good to go. So all I'm going to do now is chuck this in the car, and then we'll re-spool this eventually, and it'll be good to go. So thanks for watching, and stick around to see when it goes in the car. Cheers. Alright ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell button so you can see the next videos coming out. This will be going on my car in the next couple of weeks maybe, just to see how we go. Thanks for watching again, and see you in the next one.